Did the death of Larry Flynt ruin your Valentine's Day at all?
Yeah, I've been pretty bummed about that all week. Larry's like one of my. I kind of feel the same way. Like when Hunter S. Thompson died, it's kind of hit that special, like little, like oh my hero part of me. Like,
Well,
because
those
I first,
inspirational figures in your life.
of course, I read his book when I was 15. I was very like, and it did like change a part of me. And he's a very important man in a lot of ways that we don't really realize how important he was. And it's sad that he is no longer in the world with us. And I liked living in a world where it had Larry Flynt in it.
Did an ex of yours ever give you a hustler for Valentine's Day?
No, I've always bought my own hustlers. I don't need no mans to buy me a hustler.
Can you
I'm a
get it?
strong, independent white
Can
woman.
you get
You
it
can
in
get a
the UK
hustler.
borderlands?
Yeah, you can get a hustler over here.
Oh, I didn't know
I've
that.
got a couple of the vintage ones from the 70s. I've got a couple of them knocking around my bunker
It's a
with the
very
great
romantic
covers.
magazine.
It's a very romantic magazine. I would say it's definitely up there with like the best of the best smut magazines. I
It's a,
always wanted to work for Hustler, not naked,
you always wanted to be in the beaver
right?
hunt.
I wanted to be a staff writer for Hustler. It was one of my dreams.
I always loved the beaver hunt portion of it, especially because as a kid, occasionally
Mm,
because when you're a kid and you can't buy porn, you usually get porn hand me downs or you steal them from like one of your friends' divorced dads, and
of
so
course.
typically it was like you get like a Playboy. It's like, all right, these girls are super hot, but I'm not seeing a split beaver. And then you get
Yeah.
like a penthouse and it's a little bit, this is
Split
great.
beaver.
But when you get a hustler, that was like a score. Because there's like actual
Yeah.
penetration, there's cum shots, and then there's
Oh,
the
it's
beaver hunt. The
nasty.
beaver hunt in the
Yeah.
back was my favorite. Because it's
Hmm.
like, you had everyone's like, this is a picture of my girlfriend. So would you have been like appalled and shocked and disgusted if your boyfriend would have just been like, so I sent in a Polaroid of your pussy to Hustler's beaver hunt? Or would you have
I
been like, wow, that's the most romantic thing a man's ever done for me?
would have been like, I would have liked to have approved the picture. Like, do I look good in it? Obviously, my pussy looks great all the fucking time, but I wanted
Make
to
sure your
probably help
face, the
set.
lighting.
I'd want to set the scene a bit, yeah, and be like, we could have made that so much better than what it was. I would have Paris Hiltoned the situation. Mm.
But it is a very romantic magazine. And Larry Flynt, the founder of Hustler Magazine, will definitely be missed. He died this past Tuesday, February 10th, or Wednesday, February 10th, of heart
Yeah,
failure in Los Angeles, at the age of 78. That man, though, set new boundaries for bad taste. He really
he
has.
did.
Fought against
Yeah.
obscenity laws and was the champion of free
Hmm.
speech. And I've always admired Larry Flynt, you know? And it's an
Yeah.
interesting story, too, like of how Hustler came to be. So it all kind of happened early 1965. Flint took $1,800 from his savings, and he bought his mother's bar. So he had to pay his mom for her bar in Dayton, Ohio. It was called the Kiwi. He retrofitted it, changed it, and renovated it, and he soon became kind of a profitable place. He was making about $1,000 a week, and he used the profits from there to buy two other bars in Dayton, Ohio.
Yeah.
And this guy, I mean, he worked as many as 20 hours a day.
He's an
Hardworking guy.
entrepreneur, like,
Yeah.
yeah, he had a vision.
He took amphetamines to stay awake so he could keep working.
He
And
did
then
say.
then he decided, I'm going to open a higher class bar, a new bar. And I'm going to add nude hostess dancers. They're going to serve you drinks and hang out and perform on stage. I'm going to call it the Hustler Club. So this was kind of, unprecedented, especially in that area. I mean, they had nudie bars in San Francisco, but Dayton, Ohio,
Oh
conservative
yeah.
Midwest. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it was definitely groundbreaking. And so he had his brother Jimmy helping him out, and later his girlfriend. And they opened up hustler clubs in Akron, Cleveland, Columbus, Cincinnati, and Toledo. And these clubs started making a lot of money, like between $260 to $520,000 a year.
Wow.
And this is one of the funniest things I thought about it, because I was like, well, so then he take that money and then just start making hustler. Well, it turned out while he was managing all these clubs, he's like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make a hustler newsletter. So in 1972, he started publishing this hustler newsletter, just a 2-page black and white publication about his clubs. And it became really popular. It was almost like a strip club zine in a way,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and then he expanded it to like 16 pages and 32 pages. And by this point, it's like, it's a magazine. It's no longer just a newsletter. It's not just a zine. So in 1974, he published the first Hustler magazine, you know, and it struggled in the beginning because I think, you know, a lot of people were shocked by its content, which had been increasingly graphic over time. But, you know, it started targeting working class men, and it had a circulation of around 3 million, which is, you know, kind of impressive at that time.
Very
I mean, you had
impressive.
Playboy, you had Penthouse, like much more high profile magazines that he was competing against. And, you know, obviously he was much more like, you know, smut heavy. He was much more raw, like hardcore and the other ones. But he had like a viral breakthrough. And it was the nudie pics of Jackie Onassis.
Yeah.
So the former First Lady, Jackie Onassis, became known as the $1 billion Bush when photos of her sunbathing in the nude were splashed across the pages of the August 1975 issue of Hustler magazine. And that was one thing that Flynt did. Like, he never shied away from controversy, but he also, you know, forayed into politics. And
He did,
yeah, he
yeah.
did. And so one of the things he would do is he would like offer up money for salacious photos or salacious information. Even like, you know, recently with Trump's first impeachment, he was offering $10 million for any information that would lead to his impeachment. And I think he did the same thing with Bill Clinton. Like, he wanted like photographic evidence of Bill getting his dick sucked. You know, at the time, offered like $1 million bounty.
What a guy.
Flynt scored these sexy pics of Jackie O from an Italian magazine called Playmen. Playmen. I wonder where they got that name. Very imaginative. He paid 18 grand for it and featured a bare butt Jackie on the cover, and it made headlines everywhere. And he watched the circulation of his 1-year-old magazine spike from, you know, just a few thousand, more than 5 million. So that's what got him to that 3 million, you know, 3 to 5 million marker, which is huge. It's almost like, you know, it's like a viral. Like he like basically went viral with Naked Jackie O.
Yeah, it's kind of like how Marilyn Monroe put Playboy on the map.
Yeah, same
Jackie
kind of
O's
deal.
Bush. Yeah, I think she's the only First Lady's Bush that's ever appeared in publication, is she not?
Melania?
Melania is different. She was doing that before she was First Lady. This was after.
I guess this is after.
Jackie was First Lady. Can I just say that I have seen these pictures and they are so tame.
They're pretty tame.
You would never wank to them. You're just like, oh, that's Jackie O's Bush. That's it.
Not enough split beaver?
There's none of Jackie O's split beaver, but I mean, she had a diamond level First Lady pussy, didn't she?
Yeah. Apparently, Flynt found out that Jackie's second husband, shipping tycoon Aristotle Onassis, he took the racy shots. Well, he hired photographers to score images of his nude sunbathing mistress on the Greek island of Scorpios. So he like got these images of her, and that's how they leaked out. So I wonder if revenge porn was legal back then in the 70s. Was there a thing called revenge porn?
No, I think that's
Probably
a modern term, but yeah. But I mean, he was a dirty dog anyways, because he was boffing Maria Callas behind Jackie O's back the whole time they were together.
Never trust those Greeks.
Never.
So in November 1974, Hustler was only about 4 months old at this point. It published its first so-called quote-unquote pink shots. Your photographs of women with their legs spread to reveal the insides of their genitalia. Split beaver.
I am clutching at my pearls.
And the cover of that issue promised down-to-earth, sexy girls. Well, it did create quite a controversy because, I mean, I don't even think Penthouse was sort of explicit. Like, Penthouse showed, like, pussy lips, like labia, but they never showed, like, women, like, legs spread open, you know? No pink shots.
This is the first to do it.
And so newsstands banned the magazine due to the explicit content. And Gloria Steinem, who actually did a stint as a Playboy bunny to roast the culture created by Hugh Hefner, she thought Larry Flynt and Hustler magazine was violent, sadistic pornography. And
oh my God. Showing a woman's vagina is violent.
Well, what put her over the edge was the June 1978 Hustler cover that depicted a woman's legs and her lower torso being stuffed into a meat grinder with chopped meat coming out the other end. And then Flynt poured salt on the wounds with a tasteless cover line that read, "We'll no longer hang women up like pieces of meat.
Yeah.
We'll grind them up instead." Now, this is the reason Larry's a hero to me and a hero to many other people. He was a First Amendment champion, and this guy, like, never stepped down from a challenge to the establishment. And I mean, he had myriad legal battles, from free speech to pornography regulations. Without him, I don't think we would have Pornhub.
I don't think so either. This guy's an outlaw. He's brilliant.
Yeah, especially at that time. He first faced the Supreme Court in a 1983 case that he lost. And when he left, like leaving the court, he flew into a rage, yelling, "Fuck this court." He even wore a shirt that said, "Fuck this court."
Fuck this court, yeah.
Called all the justices nothing but 8 assholes and a token cunt, referring to Justice Sandra Day O'Connor. He went back to court in 1988, a very high-profile case against Jerry Falwell, the televangelist, who apparently sued him over an offensive ad parody in Hustler that suggested that he had slept with his own mother in an outhouse, and that's how he lost his virginity.
Yeah, brilliant.
Which, I don't know. I put some credence into that. That case was actually portrayed in the movie The People versus Larry Flynt with Woody Harrelson. I think Courtney Love was in that.
Yeah, she's Althea, his wife. Yeah.
The sentence, he was sentenced for obscenity, but he only served 6 days in jail for that. Yeah. So he actually ended up winning the case against Falwell. And as I mentioned before, Flint, dabbled in politics, and he ran briefly, did a brief presidential run as a Republican in 1984 against Ronnie Reagan. And then he ran for governor of California in 2003 with the Gray Davis recall election, which I actually voted for him in that election.
Amazing.
Well, wouldn't you?
Of course I would. I love Larry. I would have done. One of my regrets in life is that I'll never get to sit on his lap, because he always used to let the girls sit on his lap. I'll never get to do that now.
His byline in that was he called himself a smut peddler. Who cares?
That's exactly what he is.
Yeah, he finished number 7 in a field of 135 candidates, 17,458 votes.
That's really good, and you were one of them.
Yeah, it's impressive. I tried, did my best. I think Schwarzenegger won that year, the governor.
Yeah,
which is still kind of funny to have Schwarzenegger as a governor.
Well, of course.
But yeah, he referred to himself as a civil libertarian to the core, and he weighed in during Bill Clinton's impeachment trial, offering $1 million for evidence of sexual transgression, and he hated Trump. He hated Donald Trump. And in 2017, he offered a $10 million reward for any dirt that would lead to his impeachment. Well, one personal anecdote here is, so he used to ride around in an $85,000 gold-plated wheelchair. And I'm going to post a picture of him in this wheelchair on the site. But I never met him, but I saw him when I was DJing back in like 2003. So I was working at the time. Deja Vu kind of managed all the strip clubs on the block over on Broadway in North Beach. And so if you were a DJ that was, even remotely decent, they would move you between clubs if they needed a sub. And so I was one of the nighttime DJs at Roaring 20s, but occasionally they'd be like, "Hey, we need you at Centerfolds," or "We need you, at the Hungry Eye." But they just opened up a Hustler Club right across the street, which is also managed by Deja Vu. So this particular weekend, it had only been around maybe for like a month, maybe a few weeks. They were like, "Hey, we need you to work day shift over there." So they got somebody else over in 20s. They moved me to day shift. And I was pretty stoked because I'm like, fuck, if I can get in the Hustler Club, I'll be making some real money. So I was working there. And then all of a sudden, everybody got all like super excited. And I looked over and there's Larry Flynt. He just kind of showed up at the club. And so he comes in and he's got his like gold-plated wheelchair, and there were girls. Nice. They were not giving him lap dances, sort of. They're kind of like sitting on his lap and like posing with pictures. And so I was like kind of stoked because, here he is, Larry Flynt, listening to me DJ and calling girls, on and off the stage. And so I went up at one point to go get a Coke, and I kind of walked by him and I was just like, Larry Flynt, gold wheelchair. Pretty cool. Yeah, it's like seeing one of that. It's definitely one of the high points in my strip club DJ career. But now I kind of want to get into the point of this intro, the meat of the intro, is the reason why he rode around that gold-plated wheelchair and who put him there.
Mm-hmm.
So in March 1978, Flynt was leaving an obscenity court hearing in Georgia when he was shot on the sidewalk by a gunman who later, like years later, was revealed to be white supremacist serial killer Joseph Paul Franklin.
Yeah.
And Franklin, I mean, he didn't confess, to the attempted murder until years later in 1984. He claimed that he had been enraged by an interracial photo shoot that he saw in Hustler magazine. So here's a clip from the actual, this is a newscast from the day it actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
Lawrenceville attorney Gene Reeves was on the sidewalk in a pool of blood. Ambulance crews had picked up Flynt moments earlier. He had been shot once in the stomach. The bullet which hit Reeves had apparently gone through an arm and slammed into his side. Flynt had spent all morning.
Reeves was his attorney.
On the witness stand and was due up again in a few minutes until the shots rang out. Even people who were only a few feet away weren't positive what had happened.
Just hear the shot.
What did you see? Did you look out the window? Or?
No, sir. Couldn't look out the window. I was behind this building.
You came across the street then?
Yes, sir.
What did you see at that point?
Saw Mr. Reeves laying here and Mr. Flynn down there.
I saw Mr. Reeves, who's my next-door neighbor, and I tried to see his condition. Mr. Couch assured me that his condition was not serious.
All I seen was one man, he was hollering, help me, and then a friend of mine that was standing, that's going, my girl said that there was another one shot, and I told him to get back in the house because they might shoot him.
Did you see anybody running away that like it might have been the gunman?
I seen one person running around the corner, and he was going so fast you couldn't really tell what he looked like.
Gotta love that southern accent.
I wonder how to get auto-tuned into a song.
Can't tell what he looked like.
What he looked like.
So actually, I mean, we'll cover that in a second, but no one really could, there were no witnesses that could pinpoint who the gunman was, but it did turn out to be Joseph Paul Franklin, white supremacist serial sniper, who went on a killing spree between 1977 and 1980 in order to try to start a race war. That was his goal.
He's a regular Charles Manson of the East,
the
Eastern Midwest.
Who he considered quite an influence, actually.
Oh, there you go. All right.
You gotta respect your idols. So he was a racist, a member of the American Nazi Party, and he went on a killing spree for about 3 years, targeting black and Jewish people across 11 different states, mostly on the East Coast.
Oh, wow.
And he had admitted and confessed to killing at least 22 people using an arsenal of rifles. He also confessed the attempted assassinations of civil rights leader Vernon Jordan Jr. and magazine publisher Larry Flynt, who was paralyzed for life as a result of that shooting. Mm-hmm. The thing is with Franklin, I mean, he was considered to be a schizophrenic, and he confessed to a lot of things, repeatedly changed his accounts on some of the cases. So it was really kind of difficult for officials to determine the true extent of his crimes.
Of course.
He claimed racial motivation, was the main purpose, but they found him to be a paranoid schizophrenic who was not really even fit to stand trial. He was on death row for about 15 years, awaiting the execution in the state of Missouri for one murder, for the murder of Gerald Gordon in 1977. And he was later executed by lethal injection November 20th, 2013, which Larry Flynt was opposed to.
Yeah, he hated the death penalty.
Yeah, and he was even the guy that shot him and paralyzed him for life. He was against the death penalty. Got to admire Larry Flynt. Yeah. So a little bit of background here on Joseph Paul Franklin. So he was born James Clayton Vaughn Jr. in Mobile, Alabama, April 13th, 1950. His father, James Sr., was a World War II veteran turned butcher. His mother, Helen Roe Vaughn, was a waitress. Vaughn Sr. was an alcoholic, a bitter drunk, came and left the family sporadically, sometimes would disappear for months on end. And then finally he just took off for good when Franklin was only 8. Joseph Paul Franklin's siblings were raised by their very strict mother, who reportedly beat them. And they lived in poverty. Here's a quote from actually John Douglas's book on Franklin. He says, my mother was a full-blooded German who was 5'9", weighed about 170 pounds. She could really hit hard with her hands, and she liked to beat us with her hands, slap us, and hit us with switches or belts. One time she took a long stick, about 2.5 feet long, 2 inches in diameter. I had gone to the fridge and took some milk out to pour a dish for a cat I brought home. When she found out that I wasted milk, she took that stick and started hitting me as hard as she could, causing him an eye injury that she refused to treat as a young child. So he had severely impaired eyesight, which is kind of odd because the guy was a serial sniper. You'd think he'd choose another weapon there, but he blamed her. He hated his mother. He despised her for that eye injury because he wanted to join the police force. He wanted to become a police officer, but he couldn't because of the eye injury. So he joined up with the American Nazi Party instead, as one does.
Oh yeah, like it's the if you can't get into the police, where are you gonna go? This whole scenario is basically, how do you create a serial killer? Well, firstly, you have them in Alabama. The dad's not around and the mum's abusive.
Yeah.
In poverty. There you go. There's your serial killer.
Perfect recipe.
Yeah.
So as a teenager, Franklin was obsessed with religion. Evangelical Christianity. He became a member of the Church of God, headed by televangelist Gardner Ted Armstrong, and he visited nearly every church in Alabama that he could find.
Wow.
Yeah. As early in high school, that's when he was interested in evangelical Christianity. Then he discovered Nazism. And then he later on held memberships in both the National Socialist White People's Party and the Ku Klux Klan, which I wonder if like the KKK just recruited in high school like the Army does.
They must do down in Mobile, Alabama, yeah.
I've always said evangelical Christianity is a stepping stone, Well, if you think about it, I guarantee today there are high school kids who dream of becoming Proud Boys or Oath Keepers.
Oh, there will be.
Well, I'm sure there are, and then they're probably in their early teens. Look at that Wisconsin shooter kid.
Yeah.
1967, Franklin dropped out of high school. He avoided the draft due to his poor eyesight, and he married his neighbor, Bobby Louise Dorman, who was only 16 years old at the time.
Yeah.
They'd only known each other for a couple weeks. She said he was kind and gentle at first, and said he was going to take care of her. For a few weeks, it was all right. But then all of a sudden he changed. He beat me so hard I thought he was going to kill me. And they divorced after 4 months.
Whoa.
Yeah, it didn't last too long. But then he
Good
remarried.
on Bobby Joe for getting out, yeah.
Well, he remarried under a fake identity a few years later. But by this point, he had already was full bore into the white supremacy groups. He studied racist literature. He practiced Nazi salutes in the mirror. He was too poor to afford an actual uniform, so he just sewed swastikas onto his own clothing.
DIY. He was a little DIY.
DIY Nazi, yeah. Arts and crafts. And he had a couple tattoos, one of the American bald eagle and the other of a bloody grim reaper.
Ooh,
it was at this point that he changed his name to honor a couple of his heroes, Joseph Paul Goebbels, Hitler's minister of propaganda.
Oh my God, yes.
And Benjamin Franklin. Joe Franklin.
Oh, right.
He was inspired by Adolf Hitler's political manifesto, Mein Kampf. He said, I've never felt that way about any other book that I read. He'd reflect, this is years later. He said, there was just something weird about that book. Well, it was written by Hitler. That's kind of weird.
It is. Was it weird by the fact it's really, really boring and it's a very dry read?
Well,
I'm surprised he made it the way through it.
It was inspirational enough for him to be like, I'm going to start a race war. I guess you never really. When I was young, the book that inspired me more than anything else was Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. I think I read that when I was 13 or 14. I'm like, I want to do drugs. I want to do every drug I can ever find at least once.
I read that young. Yeah. Mine was Catcher in the Rye, which definitely led to me going, fuck everyone. Fuck everyone and fuck everything. Yeah, nothing matters.
Wasn't Catcher in the Rye? Wasn't that the main inspiration of Mark David Chapman?
It was indeed.
Yeah. A lot of people were inspired by that one. Franklin said he admired Charles Manson and felt it was remarkable that Manson could get other people to carry out his dirty work to launch a race war. He's like, that guy gets so much done in a day.
That guy's got charisma, you know. He's just got it.
So Franklin, for most of his life, was a drifter. He just drifted from state to state, mostly on the East Coast. And he always found white supremacists wherever he went. They're so welcoming. There's always like a white supremacist club.
You just walk into any bar and you just do the special handshake with someone. And before you know it, you're at the Nazi club.
A couple of Sieg Heils. Next thing you know, you're a charter member, you know. He joined the American Nazi Party, the Ku Klux Klan, and later the National States Rights Party, where he peddled their hate pamphlet, The Thunderbolt. In the early 70s, he actually traveled on a road trip to an American Nazi Party conference in Virginia with David Duke, who at the time was a student, and KKK fanatic Don Black. That's hilarious. David Duke actually ran for, Congress?
Yeah.
I think he ran for president.
I don't know who David Duke is.
Oh, he was a member of the KKK. People actually voted for him.
We don't have the KKK over here, David. We're
which
civilized.
Is good. Yeah, which is a good thing. It's just insane to me that we could be like, yeah, let's vote for this guy who's got ties to the KKK. Like I think he was like a Grand Dragon or something.
That's the only thing I like about the KKK is like they're all like wizards and dragons and ninjas, and like the way they've named themselves is like really cool. But that's it. That's all that's good about them.
His goal here was to cleanse the world of people he considered inferior, especially blacks and Jews.
They're who he hates the most.
Yeah, so he roamed up and down the East Coast, basically to murder blacks and Jews. He was kind of like the white supremacist version of the Equalizer, in a sense. If you think about it, if like 8chan were to make that movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, like his, he chose his victims based mostly on their race, and their background differed. I mean, their socioeconomic status, age, and gender. I mean, he killed men and women, but it was always if they're black or Jewish. Those are the two, motivating factors. He had an arsenal of rifles. It's seething hatred. He would kill innocent people just because of their skin color or religious heritage. I had about 18 aliases during this time, frequently swapped vehicles, and he dyed his hair different colors to disguise himself. But regardless of these disguises, he was unable to mask the hatred that he had in his heart. And the weirdest thing about this guy is he was really vocal about it. He would talk about how much he hated black people and Jews to everybody, from store clerks to prostitutes. One prostitute that he hired, he was like, "Where are all the black pimps? I want to go kill all the black pimps." Mm-hmm. And then he tried to get her to kill a black bellhop at the motel where they were staying. But yeah, I mean,
lovely.
Just so vocal about his racism. I'm sure he would have stormed the Capitol, don't you think?
I was about to say, usually people like that are very vocal about their racism, aren't they?
But you'd think if this guy's going out murdering people, and he's trying to like hide his identity and use different aliases, do you think he'd be so outspoken about his hatred? Talking to random people like, yeah, I'm going to go kill those Jews over there.
I think it's all that he is and was. It's consumed him, hasn't it? It
was his character.
This is it. Yes, completely.
So his primary source of financial support during these 3 years, his 3-year racist rampage, was bank robberies. He also supplemented his income with paid blood bank donations.
Oh, nice.
Which subsequently actually led to his capture a few years later. So the first murders and bombings happened in 1977, July 25th, 1977. He had a trunk load of dynamite detonated right outside the home of a Jewish pro-Israel lobbyist, Morris Amate, and his family. The home was severely damaged, but everyone survived unscathed except the 6-month-old beagle.
The beagle? The beagle's not even Jewish.
He killed the beagle.
Did the beagle have a name?
Mordecai. He was Jewish.
Mordecai.
He was a Jewish
beagle. No.
He was circumcised.
Oh, did your dad, the rabbi, go and do the bris?
Personally. But yeah, that's how vile this guy is. He killed a fucking dog. An innocent dog.
6 months old. Do you know what? That's how John Wick started.
That is exactly how John Wick started.
That's John Wick's origin story right there.
4 days later, he bombed a synagogue in Chattanooga, Tennessee, Beth Shalom. October 8th, 1977, he hid in long grass behind a telegraph pole at Beris Shalom, which is a synagogue in Richmond Heights, Missouri, and he fired into a group of worshipers with a hunting rifle, killing Gerald Gordon, and that's who he was put to death for, and injuring 2 others. He confessed to this murder in 1995, was tried, convicted, and sentenced to die for that one. 1978, he used a .44 caliber rifle to ambush Hustler publisher Larry Flynt and his lawyer Gene Reeves. They were leaving V&J cafeteria during a break, getting lunch. The guys just ate lunch during a break in this trial. Larry Flynt and his attorney, Gene Reeves, they were struck by the gunman's bullets and they fell to the ground. They were both rushed to a hospital. Reeves was only shot in the arm and the side. He recovered fully, but Flynt would be paralyzed from the waist down from the event. No one was able to really pinpoint that it was Franklin who did it. During the time, Flynt was very active in Georgia before the trial, and he was accused of selling Hustler magazines in Gwinnett County. So that's why there's this. He was there for a obscenity trial. The judge who was at the scene of the shooting ended up calling a mistrial, and they kind of threw out the case.
Oh, well, that's nice.
Yeah, I know. The guy was laying on the ground.
You're paralyzed for life. Let's just call this a mistrial, okay? It's fine.
So in 1984, so it's like almost 7 years later, white supremacist serial killer Joseph Paul Franklin confessed to the attack. He claimed to have been driven by depictions of an interracial couple in Hustler. He said, "It just made me sick. I think whites marry with whites, blacks with blacks, Indians with Indians, Orientals with Orientals." He said he saw the magazine, was sickened by it, threw it down, and he thought, "I'm going to kill that guy."
Whoa.
Yeah, but Flint survived the shooting. He's paralyzed from the waist down. And he advocated against the death penalty before Franklin's death.
Yeah, he did.
July 29th, 1978, Franklin hid near a Pizza Hut in Chattanooga and shot Bryant Tatum, a black man, with a 12-gauge shotgun. He also shot Tatum's white girlfriend, Nancy Hilton, who ended up surviving it.
Were they coming in or out of the Pizza Hut?
They were leaving the Pizza Hut.
Oh, well, at least it had, the dessert and like the
their
the
double
ice cream
stuffed
fountain.
crust pizza.
Yeah, because wouldn't you be so gutted if you were walking into the Pizza Hut and then you get shot? Because then you're going to be hungry and now you're shot.
Yeah, but
at least like this, you're full of
guts are spilling on the floor.
You can be like, oh, I've had pizza as my last meal, which is a great last meal.
Do you guys have Pizza Hut over there in the UK?
Oh, yeah. The buffet, the Pizza Hut buffet.
Oh, God.
Well, what don't you like about it?
I don't like buffets that much, but in the U.S., it's just like...
I suppose it's probably
heifers
different
just
over
go up
here.
there just to graze.
Because they're obviously smaller. They're not like catered for the American
Point me to the trough.
Size. They're just smaller buffets here, but the ones here, they bring out fresh pizza. You see them do it constantly.
I'm not a big fan of Pizza Hut's pizza, personally.
It's not my favorite. We're not going to get into the rankings of the pizza world here. But, needs a must, whatever.
I would eat it if I was,
You've got
really
the
hungry.
soft serve at the end,
I always thought it was funny when Pizza Hut's like, we got to do marketing, because it's PepsiCo that owns that company. It's like, we got to do marketing. Let's come out with something that, that's going to really like, that tantalize the audience. It's going to make people flock to Pizza Hut. So it's like, well, let's do double stuffed crust pizza. So it's like, not only does pizza have enough cheese on it, and then it's got thick crust. Well, let's put cheese inside the crust, because as if pizza doesn't have enough cheese. Let's make this thing even more fattening. Give them more cholesterol.
One of the other reasons I'm not necessarily keen on a Pizza Hut is their chips, their fries are awful.
I didn't even know they had French fries.
You can get French fries and they're shite. So
Really?
that's another reason
That must
why
be a UK
Pizza
thing.
Hut. Well, you can get fries everywhere, David.
I didn't even know that.
Fries exist.
Yeah, they do, but it's a Pizza Hut. I don't think in American Pizza Huts they have French fries. I might be wrong on this.
They will. And I bet they just have like a massive tub of ranch dressing that all the fattos
They do have that, because
because you're classy over there.
July 12th, 1979, and this is what really got me. This is what really made me just
Other than
seething
the
with
beagle.
hatred
Other than
Yeah, this
Mordecai the
is-
Beagle.
All right, that really got me too. But this one,
Yes.
this one made me cross the line. That Joseph Paul Franklin crossed the line for me here.
Okay.
Taco Bell manager Harold McIver, 27 years old, a black man, was shot through the drive-through window from 150
That's
yards
awful.
away
Oh
in
my
Doraville, Georgia.
God. I've said this a few times, but being killed at work would be the absolute worst because you're only there to make money. You're not at work for the fucking fun of it.
And how much money? Was he
Dying
making
at
$4
work.
an hour?
I hope that it was after he'd had his Taco Bell lunch as well, and it
Well, he
wasn't
was
like
working. Who
10,
knows?
10 minutes into his shift. I hope
Franklin
it was like-
confessed but was never tried or sentenced for this crime. He said that McIver was in close contact with white women, so he murdered him. Killed a Taco Bell worker. Evil
That is-
man.
That is very evil. It is disgusting.
They have a thankless job selflessly serving the American public quality food.
Yes.
And he murdered him. This man has no moral compass. He really did it. He's an awful creature. 1980, he shot and seriously wounded civil rights activist and Urban League president Vernon Jordan Jr. after seeing him with a white woman in Fort Wayne, Indiana. June 8th, 1980, he confessed to killing cousins Daryl Lane and Dante Evans Brown, just 13 and 14-year-old kids.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, he was just hanging out on an overpass, just waiting for a racially mixed couple to come by. So he's just sitting there like, there's got to be a racially mixed couple coming by sooner or later. But then he saw a couple black guys, these black kids, just two boys, riding their bikes, and he shot them instead. He was convicted for that in 1998, received 2 life sentences for those murders. June 15th, 1980, he shot and killed Arthur Smothers, 22, and Kathleen McCullough, who was only 16, with a high-powered rifle as they walked across the Washington Street Bridge in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. Smothers was black, McCullough was white.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's his ultimate hatred, it seems, isn't it? If he sees a black person and a white person together. He's
Hated
just
interracial
enraged.
couples. Became enraged,
Yes.
yeah. He was never arrested for those murders, but he did confess during a jailhouse interview. June 25th, 1980. So keep in mind, this guy murdered like over 22 people, but you don't really know in full detail how many, because he confessed to so many murders. He was also, paranoid schizophrenic.
Yeah, this is a bit like Otis Toole, isn't it? Like, now I'm in jail, I'll admit to anything.
Start
even
admitting
if
to
it
more.
might not have been me. Yeah.
But on June 25th, 1980, he used a .44 Ruger to kill 2 hitchhikers, Nancy Santamera, who's only 19, and Vicky Durian, 26. This was in West Virginia. He confessed to the crime in 1997. He said he picked up the white girls and decided to kill them after one told him that she had a black boyfriend.
Really?
It's a big mistake. Just, I'm surprised. Like, he must have asked them or something.
I think he would have led the conversation round to that, wouldn't he?
He probably did. It's like, oh, tell me about your boyfriend.
Yeah.
What's his skin color? What race is he? It's like
What's
at that
his
point, just
name?
be like, none of your business. All right.
Yeah.
I'm so amazed though. So many women were murdered hitchhiking back then. You just don't want to hitchhike in the U.S. You could do it in Europe, but you just don't want to do it in the U.S.
Well, it's still kind of dodgy here now, but I mean, everyone did it back then. Like, it was just a
Yeah, but
thing.
so many. It's like fish in a barrel for serial killers.
Oh, of course
you
it
know?
is. Like getting into a man's car.
For this particular murder, these 2 murders, a man named Jacob Beard was convicted in prison in 1993 on these charges. He served 6 years before in 1999 he was freed because Franklin's confession. I wonder how much he sued the state for.
I hope a lot.
Yeah. August 20th, 1980, Franklin shot his last victims. An Eagle Scout, no less. David Martin and his friend Ted Fields, who was the son of a preacher, both young black men. They'd been jogging with 2 white classmates in Salt Lake City, Utah. Okay, I guess he did make it kind of west.
As I say, that's
Yeah.
pretty much over here. Because when you said Missouri before as well,
Yeah,
I was
Missouri.
like,
He
well,
must have.
That's
okay.
over, like, on the other side. So he is going.
Yeah.
These are all federal crimes. I mean,
he was
you
a
commit
drifter.
a crime. You commit a crime in one state and then go to another state and commit a crime. There's your federal crime. You can go to jail for fucking ever just by doing a federal crime.
Well, at this point. Plus, he didn't really seem to have any qualms about confessing to these murders.
I know they're say, I think you said early on that it sounds like that they were saying he's a paranoid schizophrenic. This is not the acts of a paranoid schizophrenic. This is the act of a man who is in with intention, who clearly knows what he's doing.
Well, yeah, I mean, plus the fact that he like acquired all this weaponry and was robbing
And he would
banks for
change
the
his
money and all that.
appearance.
But I think
Yeah,
I think what they're
that's not a
saying was
paranoid
schizophrenic is his pathological hatred for black people and for Jews, and the fact that he felt like Jews were the most evil race of white people and plotting against them. I think that's kind of why they attribute it to schizophrenia. But yeah, I question it too, because you think most schizophrenics, could they plan murders like this?
Not to this degree over a 3-year period. And like, he's killing multiple people in a month in different states. So there's no way that he could have done
But he was
this.
just drifting.
This man to me is like, obviously he's a psychopath, but he's sane. I would not put him as a paranoid schizophrenic at all.
You know, he was on death row, so I mean, obviously.
Well, there you
people
go.
didn't think,
Yeah.
He was incompetent to stand trial. So these 2 murders were his last. After he killed them in Utah, he returned to the Midwest, traveling through Kentucky. He was detained and questioned regarding a firearm that he was transporting in his car. He ended up fleeing from this interrogation, but authorities recovered enough evidence from the vehicle to link him to the sniper killings. So he kind of messed up at this point.
Yes.
His conspicuous racist tattoos, coupled with his habit of visiting blood banks, led investigators to issue a nationwide alert to all blood banks. And so in October 1980, the tattoos, like Grim Reaper tattoos, I'm sure he had like swastikas as well, drew attention of a Florida blood bank worker who contacted the FBI. And he was arrested in Lakeland, Florida, October 28th, 1980. He was tried on federal civil rights charges as well as state first-degree murder charges. Mm-hmm. So when he was in prison, this is where I guess he had a psychiatrist who interviewed him at length. And she testified for the defense because they were going the insanity route.
Of course.
She believed he was a paranoid schizophrenic, unfit to stand trial, noted his delusional thinking, and a childhood history of severe abuse.
Oh, yes. Blame the mother.
In October 2013, Flynt called for clemency for Franklin, asserting that a government that forbids killing among its citizens should not be in the business of killing people itself.
Well, he's very correct.
Yeah.
I am against the death penalty, though, so I'm obviously going to side with Larry Flynt.
Well, he was on death row for 15 years. And at the Potosi Correctional Center near Mineral Point, Missouri.
There's people, I mean, yeah, that is like a short time to be on death row.
Yeah, well, 15 to 20 years. Isn't that kind of normal?
There's people who've been on death row for like nearly 30.
Yeah, I guess the state Supreme Court of Missouri in August 2013, they said Franklin's going to be executed later this year. And they actually pinpointed a date. They chose a date, November 20th, 2013. They said that by setting an execution date, the state high court has taken an important step to see that justice is finally done for the victims and the families. Mm-hmm. What's interesting about his execution is it was complicated because during this period, so 2013, the European drug manufacturers who, made the drug, what's a drug that they use? I forget. It's not just phenobarbital. It's like another...
I can remember this because the drug was actually coming from Britain. And when we stopped selling it to you guys, because we were like, well, we're against the death penalty and that's what you're using it for, we're cutting off your supply. America then turned to the EU, to Europe, and like then loads of countries stopped selling the sedative. It's the first one.
Yeah, it's not phenobarbital. It's another sedative.
I can't remember. Yeah.
There's three solutions, 3 chemicals.
Yeah. Every country in Europe stopped selling it to America because I don't think there's a country in Europe that has the death penalty. Could be wrong there. I'm sure someone will let me know.
But yeah, they objected on moral grounds to having their drugs used in lethal injection. And so in response, Missouri announced that it's just going to, for Franklin's execution, they're going to use a new method of lethal injection, which used just a single drug rather than the trio of drugs. Okay. And this is provided by an unnamed pharmacy.
It's just a bunch of cyanide. Is it a cyanide capsule?
No, I think it's phenobarbital, but they didn't
Okay.
use like the sedative and the other
Yeah.
agents. So he was granted a stay of execution over concerns about this new method of execution because they thought it was cruel because it hadn't been tested.
Right, yeah.
And then a second stay was granted because Franklin was claiming that he was mentally incompetent to be executed. But an appeals court quickly overturned both stays, and the Supreme Court rejected any final appeals. So Joseph Paul Franklin was executed at the Eastern Reception Diagnostic and Correctional Center in Bonne Terre, Missouri, November 20th, 2013. Execution began at 6:07, and he was pronounced dead at 6:17. It's only 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It was the first lethal injection in Missouri to use phenobarbital alone instead of the conventional 3-drug cocktail. So that's why it was definitely unconventional. 3 media witnesses said Franklin did not seem to show any pain. He didn't make any final written statement, and he did not speak a word in the death chamber. And you mentioned to me before we started recording that he didn't even have a last meal.
Yeah, I always look that up because I'm always interested in the last meal.
Yeah, I'm
that shows
surprised.
you what a fucking arsehole he is. The fact he's
Stubborn.
like didn't have a last meal. Yeah.
They should give him like an
Asshole.
ethnic last meal, like matzo ball soup or something.
That is exactly what they should have done.
Here's some
Yes.
challah.
Yeah.
After the injection, he blinked a few times, breathed heavily a few times, swallowed hard, and then the heaving of his chest slowed and finally stopped. According to the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, a few days prior to the execution, he said he had renounced his racist views. He said his motivation had
course.
been illogical and was a consequence of an abusive upbringing. And he said he had interacted with black people in prison, and he saw they're just people just like us.
You know what? He watched American History X in prison and then was like, I'm just going to copy this. Yeah.
I
this is
think
fine
what
now.
happened is he was getting desperate. Final days were
Yeah,
approaching.
they always do that. They
You
either,
know.
they either turn to God. Anyone who turns to God in jail is a fraud and a phony. It's like AA people who suddenly start believing in God instead of drugs.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you're just brainwashed. It's as simple as that. It's
Well-
big brains times here.
The godfather of criminal profiling, former FBI Special Agent John Douglas, he wrote a book about Franklin. He said Franklin shook him more than any other killer in his 25-year career. He said many of the murderers I've interviewed, it was usually a sexual bent to their crimes. Sometimes they'll show emotion, even if it's just bullshit. But this guy, Joseph Paul Franklin, was a different animal. I was hoping for a faint glimmer of remorse. Instead, he was always bragging, boasting, even trying to educate us on how he planned all of his crimes. So he was like mansplaining his racist crimes
What a dickhead.
to John Douglas. And then he was saying, they asked him about days before he was scheduled to be executed. He was like, well, Franklin expressed remorse, but Douglas said he wasn't convinced. He said he showed remorse towards the end because they're getting ready to fry him.
Yeah.
You
Which
know,
happens.
well, yeah, it does.
Yeah.
He said when I interviewed him, he was still fighting the death penalty, and he spoke to us about his shootings like he was hunting deer, laughing, joking, boasting about it. He didn't care who these people were because in his mind, they were his enemy.
This guy sounds like a true psychopath in more ways than other killers that we've covered before.
You know, I don't approve of the death penalty either because I think it's far worse to rot
To live is
on
to
death
suffer.
row,
To live is
for
to
the rest of your
suffer.
life, be in a cage. However, I don't think the world's really missing this guy. I don't think it's, the fact that Joseph Paul Franklin isn't still, walking around, I don't think it's a big loss to humanity.
No, it's not. But I do agree that it's very hypocritical of a society to
Yeah.
be like, you shall not murder, but it's okay that I can murder you. It's a fundamental flaw in a society that can do that. And plus, when you think about it, how many other countries in the Western world actually have the death penalty? There's like Japan, Russia, and then besides that, it's all the Middle East. So
Yeah,
like,
the Middle
as
East.
America is like, you're a forward-thinking country. You're always, why would you align yourselves?
Well, my
with
whole
this?
thing with the death penalty is like, so many convictions are overturned because they have new evidence.
Yes.
Well, then how can you
Yeah.
trust that? How can you sentence this
can't.
person to death when you're not 100% certain that they committed the crime?
You cannot. And
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's bad.
So,
Anyways.
and plus, I think it's more of a punishment to be in a cage for the rest of your life.
Oh, of course.
Till you die.
It's like, yeah, it's awful. Being
Anyway,
alive sucks.
to bring this full circle and back to Larry Flynt, do you know Larry Flynt was married 5 times?
I
5
did know
wives that guy had.
because he is insatiable, darling.
Yeah, but that means
He may have had 5 wives, but he only had one love.
Who, Althea?
Althea. They were like the perfect match. And her
Yeah, but that
death was
means he
very
must have
sad.
still been fucking while he's in that wheelchair.
Well, maybe not if he's had 4 other wives.
Oh, prior to it, yeah. But yeah, he had
Well,
five,
I think
five wives.
he was married before Althea, wasn't he? And then Althea was his second wife. So he's had 3 wives since Althea.
So he must have been fucking in that wheelchair.
Yeah, but that could also be why they left him. Because, the money, the fame is all the draw. But then after like a couple of years of not being fucked, rogered hard by your husband, you're going to be a bit like, well, where is this relationship going, Larry?
We had 5 daughters, a son, and many grandchildren and great-grandchildren.
Good for him.
I didn't know this, but he'd become an evangelical Christian for 1 year, converted in 1977 by Ruth Carter Stapleton, the sister of President Jimmy Carter. Did you know that?
Did you not know that? That's
didn't know
when
that.
Hustler stopped showing Taint.
Was it in 1977?
That's when Hustler was like, they stopped showing any form of Taint. The magazine nearly collapsed and folded because he went down this kind of evangelical Christian route. And that's what led up to him doing this whole Jerry Falwell thing. It was part
afterwards.
of it.
Well,
Yeah.
he became a born again, and then he had a vision from God while flying with Stapleton in his jet. He continued to publish the magazine, although he vowed at that point to hustle for God. But then
Hustle for
later
God.
declared himself an atheist.
What a guy.
Apparently,
I just thought, his pecker must work if he's got all these kids. So he can't.
Well, yeah,
fuck in
that's
the
what I'm
wheelchair.
saying.
He must have a sex swing. I bet he had a sex swing, which will soon be up for like auction. Like, when when a person dies or their shit goes to auction. Larry Flynt's sex swing.
I haven't had sex with too many disabled people, but I'm assuming that you're limited in the position. So there must be some devices you could buy.
Oh yes, of course.
I wonder if Adam and Eve sells anything like that.
I bet he totally had like a specialized wheelchair. I bet he had his fucking chair, his fucking wheelchair.
The fucking wheelchair.
And when he got himself in that fucking wheelchair, if you were his wife, you're going to be taken to Pound Town. He's going to roll you into Pound Town, baby.
Do you think he
As soon as
rolled
gets in that
around
chair.
while he was fucking?
I bet he would. I bet, he could take you all around the house in it. So then you could be like, I'm going to fuck you in every room of this house today, baby. You're like, yeah, I dare you to. And he would.
He disowned his eldest daughter, Tanya Flint Vega, after she became a
Ooh.
Christian anti-pornography activist. And
Jesus.
she wrote in a 1998 book called Hustled that Larry Flynt sexually abused her as a child, often calling her names. Flynt vehemently denied the charges, and he actually took a polygraph and said that he was in possession of a tape recording of his daughter admitting that she made up the accusations for money. So he probably cut her off.
Yeah.
And she was pissed off about it.
If you ask me who I'm going to believe, an atheist or a Christian, I'm always going to believe the fucking atheist. I'm not going to believe the Christian.
His other daughter, Lisa Flint Fugit, died in a car crash in Ohio, October 2014, at the age of 47.
Oh, that's young.
And Larry Flynt passed away this past Wednesday, February 10th, at the age of 78. I'll raise my glass to Larry Flynt, though. Rest in peace,
Yes.
Larry Flynt. He's a
King
warrior
of
of free
Pawn.
speech. His steadfast fight and continued fights against censorship redefined obscenity laws. Even though YouTube and Facebook are resurrecting the puritanical ways of our country, we need more
Yeah.
people like Larry Flynt. And personally,
We
I think
do.
everybody should buy a Hustler and have a wank in honor of Larry Flynt this weekend.
A wank to the king.
Wank to Larry Flynt.
Yeah.
People, it's episode 778 here, Sick and Wrong. We have some news stories coming up next. We have some horrifying losing virginity stories coming up a little later in the show. But first, Here's a quick word about our Patreon page.